Bob here, Chopper Bob Customs, and I thought I'd give you a quick update on how things are progressing with Traps and Skates 2, the 1932 Bantam altered. I've been working on the brakes, and I'm not going to show the video of cutting and flaring and making sure that the tubes are bent correctly. I'm just going to show you what I did. I am going to show you one thing that had to be done in order to make things happen, just because I think it was an interesting thing, how I make do without good equipment. At any rate, one of the things that I've done on this car is when I got it, it had Wilwood hubs on it, but it didn't have any front brakes. Originally, the car had drum brakes on the back only. When Robin got it, in order to compete in the category he wanted to compete in, he did convert it to disc brakes on the rear. It's got Corvette 4-piston calipers, and I think they're Jeep rotors. And I'm going to have to do some attention to that back there. I think the calipers might be leaking a little bit, as Corvette calipers are known to do. And also there's some wonky brake lines back there as well. But so what I did was I went ahead and got the Wilwood calipers, caliper mounting brackets, and rotors, and put Wilwood brakes on the front of it. And of course, then I think this is called the fruit jar single pot master cylinder. Wasn't going to be sufficient anymore. Also, the car had a line lock on it, but of course it was on the rear brakes, and it would lose the pedal. You'd get in it after it had sat for a little bit, and you'd push on the pedal, and you'd have to pump them up to get the brakes to work. And I'm fairly certain that the cause of that was the fact that the master cylinder was mounted below the rear calipers, and they were basically draining back into the master cylinder and pulling the pistons away from the pads. So I've also put in 2 psi 2 psi residual pressure valves, front and rear, so that that won't happen. The fluid will stay in the calipers and not pull the piston back and cause problems with that. Why don't I go ahead and pause this real quick and go handheld and show you where we're at with this. Okay, so here are the Wilwood hubs, and like I said, they came on the car. They're on the early Ford style spindles, and so it was an easy deal to go to Wilwood and get the rotor adapters, the rotors, the caliper mounting brackets, and the calipers. The late great Steve Rogers welded on the brackets on the spindles for me, and then I've still got a little bit of work to do on these spindles because the Ackerman's incorrect, but I'll take care of that in a little bit. Went ahead and got braided stainless flex lines, and then bent the front lines so that the front brakes had brakes. And then what I've been doing here recently is getting it plumb to the back. As you can see, I've got the lines Adele clamped to the frame going back that way. Let me get around here. And there is the tube. That's an NHRA requirement. I don't know whether other sanctioning bodies require it. There's some disagreement as to whether that's absolutely necessary. What NHRA rulebook says is that there has to be an 18-inch long tube with 1/8 inch wall that the brake line runs past the flex plate or flywheel, and it says, or it can run on the outside of the frame. Well, I didn't want it on the outside of the frame. I could have snaked it through the inside of the frame, but that's not 1/8 inch thick, because I'm fairly certain this is a chrome moly frame, and so it's not an 1/8 inch thick steel. So I went ahead and opted to go ahead and just put a tube in it, and that was, other than the fact my welding's not the prettiest, it is functional. So let me pause here for a second, and I'll get underneath the car. Okay, so there's the new master cylinder, and I did do some research and got a Chrysler master cylinder with what I believe to be the right piston diameter. It would have been nice if the lines had been on the other side, but for 40 bucks I think I gave for it, I don't think I can complain. There is the residual pressure valve, the 2 psi residual pressure valve that goes to the rear brakes. And in order to make this work, of course, fortunately the bolt spacing on the master cylinder was the same, so it bolted right to this rather crude looking mounting bracket. But I think it's been on the car since it was a funny car from the looks of things. But so that was good. One thing that was different was the was this push rod. And let me take a break, and I'm going to show you what I did on this push rod, because that is something that you don't do every day. Okay, so this is the clevis in the rod that was originally on the car, and the clevis is homemade, but it's fairly well made, and it's really wide because the pedal is wide. So I'm going to keep the clevis for now. It's ugly, but I believe it's pretty functional. The rod, however, it looks like it's made out of several pieces, and it almost looks like they're resistance welded together. It's a little bit too long because the recess in the new master cylinder is shallower, and then also it's too big in diameter. The recess is a smaller diameter. But it's got 3/8 threads on it. So in order to make this work, what I did was I got a, and I don't have a lathe. If I had a lathe, this would be a lot easier. But basically what I did was I took a 3/8 bolt, and I'm going to need to turn it down to 5/16 at the very end, well, after I cut the head off. So let's see here. Okay. So what I'm going to try and do, and we'll see if this works, is I've got a holder. Basically it is a rod with a 3/8 nut that I've drilled the threads out of, and I'm going to use it to make sure that I keep constant contact with the wheel. I've got a very healthy coating of anti-seize on it, and I'm going to spin it in the drill while the grinder is spinning, and hopefully get a good 5/16 inch here. So this will probably take several tries, but because I don't want to go too small. And then once I get it done, I'll need to round over the nose, and we'll see how that goes. see if this fits, and if it does, I'll come back and round over the nose. Over, and it's a pretty nice fit. I took a little sandpaper and kind of spun it in the sandpaper to get some of the roughness out of it. And yeah, I think this is going to work great. So now what I need to do is round over the nose. And I think what's going to do that is if I bring this around like this and work it into the wheel, hopefully that'll get me a fairly nice round nose. Perfect, but I think it'll do the job. Let me get this cleaned up and see how this fits. If this is good, then this will be ready to go back together. Okay, so it goes in there really nice. It's got just a little bit of play here and there. Of course, the pedal, and then this is a stop, so that you can make adjustments to it and not have the rod fall out, which will sort of ruin your day. I did have to enlarge the hole in the floor for the master cylinder fill. I've got to come back in and clean this up, and then I've got to rearrange the cover. Actually, the caps extend up above the floor level, so I'm going to have to figure out how to dimple the plate that goes in there to clearance the caps. And then they had used a 1/4-inch bolt and a slide under on the other side to lock it in place. And I'm going to probably go with a Zeus fastener for that. And then on the other side, I think I can get around here so you can see it. There is the residual pressure valve for the front brakes that feeds from the master cylinder. It comes from the master cylinder through the residual pressure valve into the jegs line lock. And as you can see, I haven't hooked the wires up yet, but I'll get to that. And then it comes and it goes into that tube I was talking about just a little bit ago. And I've gone ahead and put basically a vacuum tube over it to protect it from chafing where it goes through this tube. And then I had to do a little bit of rearranging of the rear brake line, and I had to take the he had the line lock back up there at the where it joins into the flex hose. And I'm going to pause it and step around to the back of the car and show you what I got going on there. Okay, so this is still going to require some work back here. There's the Corvette caliper and the disc. Like I said, I believe that's for a Jeep. There are flex lines coming off of the calipers so that the caliper can move, although really those calipers don't move, so I'm not exactly sure why there's a flex line there. The 4-piston caliper is rigid mounted and the pistons move. I'm going to have to check into that. I may be able to get away from the flex lines. Maybe not. They got a banjo fitting. I think I can get it's probably AN. Anyway, they don't have it mounted to the rear axle there, but they do have it mounted here. And of course, this is the brake line cooler that we've got there, and we've got a little one over here. But so obviously I've got some cleanup work to do back here to get this looking a little bit sharper than it is right now. But that's the brake system. Well, there, I told you it was going to be short, and it was. So I'm going to be probably, right now I've got to get things sorted out here so I can get the car in here, because I think we've got some bad weather rolling in. But I'm going to be putting this in the storage probably later in the week and getting another project in here. Actually, I'm going to be bringing a couple projects in. Update on the Mustang. The owner and I have talked about it, and it had kind of grown to the point where it was really too big for my shop. And so he has decided to either sell the car, or he may go ahead and do some of the work himself, and see how that goes. I've got 56 Chevy coming in. It's going to be kind of an interesting deal. And then I've got something that I went completely nuts, and so I'll be posting that here shortly. And then of course I do want to go racing with this season. So I'm very, very close on this. Got the radiator mounted. Got a couple of brackets that I have to add to that and sort out the radiator hoses. Engine, transmission, fuel pump. I've got to mount the switch panel, get the wiring sorted out, and it should be ready to go. And then, but by all means, subscribe to the video, please, to the channel anyway. Like the videos. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. Got any comments, leave them in the comments. I try and get back to people if the question warrants it. Other ones that just, tell me how great I am, I just sit there and bask in the glory. Anyway, talent on loan from God, trust me. And then hit the notification bell, and by all means, like I said, please subscribe, and keep watching. And so for now, Chopper Bob out.